Hello everybody, and welcome to a video on how to set up Zoom and use Zoom effectively for online lessons with Holland Park, China. So the first thing you need to check is if you click here, every time you create a call on Zoom, it requires a 10-digit code for someone else to enter. If you have this ticked, you will be able to use the same code every time. So the student doesn't need to be told every lesson what the new code is. So make sure this is ticked. You then click new meeting with about 5 minutes for the lesson, and you'll see me here. And as you can see, the lesson is opened. At the lesson time, the student will then join. So we'll see an example of a student joining now. There we are. You then want to, within the actual thing, to show you around Zoom a little bit. The first most important thing to look at is manage participants. So you can see here you have a bit of controls. You can mute the students. So if you have maybe multiple students, you can mute them. You can also organize certain things like allowing them to unmute themselves, etc. The next thing to then look at if you while you're in Zoom is how to use it effectively. So if you want to share the screen to show any document, you click here, share. And as you can see, you can share whatever is open. So if I have a PowerPoint, as you can see here, I can click share, and then I go into the PowerPoint. And everything that has the green outline is what the student can see. So they'll have a little thumbnail video of you like you can see here, but the main thing they'll be able to see is what's in this green box. So you can click within a PowerPoint play from current slide and go through it this way if you want it maybe more zoomed in, or you want them to focus a little bit more. But then that does stop you, for example, of being able to use other things. So as you can see, I'm going through a PowerPoint here I made with some lesson notes. So you can use a PowerPoint that way. You can also share any other type of really thing you open. If you have a PowerPoint, if you have a picture to show, for example, here, if I click share there, it's sharing this picture and the student will see that. You can also, so you click stop share certain parts of your screen in advanced, so only portions of your screen. You can also share videos. So if I have a video, for example, this video, which is a lesson, a little story the students can watch, you go back to here and you click share. And then you click on here, and it's always good for a video to click share computer sound there and optimize full video clip. And then again, the student, whatever that green box shows, sees that. The next thing to show you through is chat. So this is the feature here, hello, and you can see on the right, the student will see that and it'll come up for you. And you can use that within the lessons to type things to them, get them to take down notes so you can see that, and especially if you have maybe multiple students, it's a good way to speak to them all at once and for them to put all their answers there at once. It's a really good feature there, and you will see when they type themselves, it'll come up there. The next thing to show you is the interactive whiteboard, which again you click share, then click whiteboard. And you can see here, you can use this for whatever you want. You can scaffold or structure some sentences. My name is, get them to fill it in. They can co-annotate. It's a little bit complicated, and I'll have another video document for that to show you how you can ask them. If the language is difficult, it's difficult to maybe explain how to click annotate. But this is really useful for both of you to use as really for anything. Important things about this is when you click text here, to change the color of it, you then have to go to format and say red. And if I put in here Apple, and then every time you want to access that text, say you want to change it or add to it, you have to click select and then double click it, and then you can work on it. If you're stuck in text, every time you click on it, it'll just create a new text box to write over it. So this is a really useful place, the interactive whiteboard, for lots of learning opportunities with them, and it's really focused because it's all they can see. So it's a really good opportunity, like a real whiteboard, to use within Zoom. And again, you can click stop share, but if you have anything saved in here, you click save here, and you'll be able to access that and send that to them, and it will be in the form of a JPEG because it is a picture of the whiteboard as opposed to text. So if we did save this, and I said go to Finder. What you can then do is if you go to the chat feature, which we just had, which is to the top, and when you have this panel open, you click More, you can then send it to them, Control V, so everybody can then see that. So that's another good thing about the chat feature, if I stop here, is to be able to send documents to the student. So anytime you need to send something to the student, be it a Word file or picture or maybe details of their homework, that's a really good place to send it, or just on your right here. So again, let me send you another thing. So we're going to Angelina's homework. I'll just drag and drop in there and it's send for her, and she will just need to double click it and it'll open for her. All the files after Zoom call will be saved, but it's good to get her to maybe take it off the chat while the lesson's still open and put on her desktop or his desktop, and it makes it a lot easier that way. The last thing I want to quickly show is how to really use the internet. So if I've got something open, maybe BBC Bite Size, which I really want to share with the student, again, a really good thing is you can just share screen there. So say we're looking at biology, single science, some topic here, we'll go AQA, and transport in cells. You just need to go back to here, click share, and if it's open, you can click Google Chrome, and it will show you, show the student again what is ever in the green box. You can stretch that for them. You can zoom in and out, go through it with them, and they'll get to see that. My piece of advice on using the internet is to really make it as simple as possible. Sometimes teachers have tried to use different apps and applications and different online game learning websites. Unless you're practiced in this, I'd be very wary, just because, of course, the internet issue and the Chinese firewall can block some of this access for students. So they might not be able to access it themselves, and it might be quite frustrating. So if you are going to use anything other than really just an information website which you're sharing, make sure it works before you ask them to do it for either for homework or in the lesson. So that is basically a quick snapshot of how to use Zoom for a lesson. Really, when I'm teaching, I use most of the lesson is either an interactive whiteboard, or I'm sharing a document or PPT and looking at it with them. I don't conduct too much of the lesson face-to-face like this, just because if you've got the facilities to type while you're talking or to structure things so they can see it, it works very well. So the last thing for new teachers to look at, I'm just going to show you, is this document here, which I just had open. It's very important for new tutors, just to remember the main things which is different about tutoring online and for our offline tutors in London. So it's really important that you understand Zoom. So if you're new to Zoom, watch this video, look at our other documents, play around, because it's really, for a lot of these students, they'll be new to Zoom, and it's not really acceptable that the first half an hour of the lesson is spent trying to work out Zoom, because the parents will be watching that first lesson, and it's a big test. So it's better to turn up prepared, knowing Zoom and knowing what you're going to share and how it all works. Otherwise, it looks unprofessional, and often parents will complain. So understanding how to share screen, using the interactive whiteboard, how to use the chat feature, how to send files. So you should know all of this before you teach your first lesson. And then understanding how to keep it interactive and engaging. Part of that comes with time, and it differs per topic or what you're actually teaching, and also it comes with the way you teach. But it's very important to think about that again before you're teaching your first lessons, because that's what the parents and the students also measure it on. Timing and punctuality. So we ask tutors to be online 5 minutes before the lesson, so that allows for any technical problems. Tell them they can come in, log in 2 minutes before. They can log in before you even arrive, which is good. Keeping the schedule as fixed as possible is really important for Chinese students. They're extremely busy. So even a 30-minute change, it just isn't available for them because they have such booked up schedules. The average Chinese student in Shanghai and Beijing has about 14 hours of extra tuition a week outside of school. So they really are inflexible. and they don't like it when things are changed because they can't change, as opposed to they're just being difficult. If you need to reschedule, which is again, it has to be one-off, that has to happen 24 hours in advance. And then the last thing, which is really important, which is again different for the Chinese market, is lesson feedback is extremely important. A lot of the parents don't necessarily understand English, so what they're judging the lesson on will not just be how it looks and how engaged the student is, but also the feedback that comes to them. They do trust teachers, but even the teachers they've had for hundreds of hours, there's still a need and a requirement for them to get feedback every lesson. So we ask for that to be done after 24 hours after the lesson. It has to come in and be uploaded to Oasis, and that is really important. And again, that's not necessarily a requirement for us as a company, but it comes through us because that's what the parents require. And if that is slow, we've had cases of parents stopping the tutoring just because the feedback's been too slow. So that really is something that has to happen 24 hours after the lesson. The feedback has to go in Oasis. We will translate it and pass it on to the parents, but we can't be chasing this up because it really frustrates the parents. So what the parents want to know in this feedback is what's covered in the lesson. As much specifics as possible is great. How the student did, problems and improvements, and then what she or he needs to do after the lesson, including homework and learning advice. So this is an example of one which takes a couple of minutes to complete. Tony worked really well today and I was impressed with his concentration. Today we reviewed cells and cell organization. We looked at specific vocab and what he will need to understand in terms of theory and science knowledge for his exam at the end of the year. Tony should try applying the knowledge he has taken on in the homework that I said to him, and remember to review the vocab list that we created. So that takes a couple of minutes, just needs to be done straight after the lesson ideally. 24 hours is the maximum, and we will translate that and pass it on to the parents, and it really does keep them happy, which is great for us, but also is great for you because it means long-term clients who stay with you and buy more hours. So that is a very quick snapshot of how to use Zoom, and also the main changes between teaching offline and teaching online for Holland Park China. There will be more documents coming and more training for tutors, but if you have any queries on any of this, please do email us before you start the lessons, and please do practice in Zoom and remember to write the reports and be punctual, because this is what the parents in China require and creates a good service for us.